Hello Riot Games. I am deeply disappointed in your game League of Legends, and will do my best to describe in detail the reasons for my disappointment. Your game is, in my opinion, seriously flawed in a number of ways. After months of biting my tongue and tolerating these flaws without publicly complaining about them, the time has come when I have mentally, emotionally, and psychologically reached a breaking point. I am no longer willing to continue to play your game in its current state. Because of my level of frustration toward your game, I have decided to go public with my grievances. The first and most glaring flaw that I have noticed about your game is its tendency to crash very frequently. Over the past several months, these game crashes have greatly diminished my level of enjoyment from playing your game. On average, your game will crash on my PC 2 to 3 times per game, every game, and has crashed at least once every single game without exception for the past 6 months. To preempt the usual responses that may be given as potential reasons for the crashes, I will state the following. My PC meets or exceeds every recommended requirement, not just the minimum requirements, for League of Legends. All my drivers, operating system, software, etc. are up to date. Reducing the graphics settings and/or muting the sound does not reduce the frequency of the game crashes whatsoever. League of Legends is the only program that crashes on my PC in such a manner. In fact, I cannot recall any game or program other than League of Legends ever crashing on my PC. In many games, I have noticed instances where one or more of my teammates experiences a crash. In other words, the player disconnects from the game and then reconnects later. When the game crashes, it typically takes anywhere from 30 seconds to 1 minute to rejoin the game. Furthermore, when I do return to the game, it may be the case that my champion did not move during that time, usually resulting in getting killed by the enemy team during the downtime, or has safely returned to the spawn area. On average, there is approximately a 50-50 chance that either of these two scenarios has taken place. This raises a question. Why does the game not always return my champion to the spawn area after a crash? This is an issue that I feel is worth investigating and correcting. The second flaw worth mentioning is the horrifyingly unfair, unbalanced, and quite frankly bizarre matchmaking system. This is particularly egregious in ARAM, where not only are the teams usually mismatched in terms of the skill levels of the players, but are also usually very mismatched in terms of which champions the teams are comprised of. After all, there is a reason why some champions are in the high 60s in terms of the win rate, while others are way down in the low 30s. It is because some champions are in fact better suited for team fights on a thin bridge. In other words, mages with powerful long-range damaging abilities, damaging traps, supports with team buffs, etc., than others. In other words, assassins and tanks who lack ranged abilities. Furthermore, some champion combinations simply work better than others. In other words, crowd control abilities from some champions combined with high DPS output from others. Consider this example. How would a team of Garen, Udyr, Rammus, Riven, Singed perform against a team of Kog'Maw, Veigar, Heimerdinger, Zyra, and Ziggs? It is highly unlikely that they would fare well. To make matters even worse, there is the additional annoyance of people dodging games. It is very frustrating when an ARAM game provides a good combination of champions for my team and gives me a champion that I want to play, only for a player to dodge, perhaps on our team or the other team. Then the next game gives our team a terrible lineup of champions and gives me a champion that I do not want to play. This predictably leads to a landslide loss for my team. This issue of unfair team composition could be rectified by allowing players to choose their champion in ARAM rather than to have a champion they don't want to play forced upon them. Alternatively, both teams could have the same champions to ensure that there is no unfair team comp advantage for one team over the other. While it could be argued that rerolls have been provided to rectify the issue, I would argue that the rerolls are currently too few and far between to significantly reduce the issue of unfair team compositions. Furthermore, even when the two teams stack up fairly in terms of champions, there is still the issue of unbalanced team player skill levels. Overall, based on my experience, I would say that upwards of 90% of ARAM games are landslides for one team or the other. In less than 10% of ARAM games, there is a somewhat noticeable competitive balance. In my opinion, it is not very fun to participate in a game where either there is no challenge at all, or the other extreme, the game is a total lost cause. The issue of unfairness has, at this point, annihilated my willingness to continue playing the game. The third grievance I have about your game is the fact that special game modes such as Legend of the Poro King, Ascension, Ultra Rapid Fire, etc. are usually not available to play. This is very disappointing as I have enjoyed playing these game modes in the past. My fourth complaint is the fact that match replays expire every time a new update is released. This is problematic as I wanted to go back to replays from the past weeks and make some highlight videos. Alas, this is not possible thanks to the fact that older replays can't be viewed. There has even been a case where I wanted to take a video capture of a pentakill from the previous day, but it just so happened that there was an update released the night before, which denied me a chance of viewing that replay. I mean, really? I can't even view replays from the previous day? I am rather annoyed that there is currently no way around this issue. In addition to the issues listed above, there are other problems which are also plaguing the game. These include players leaving the game prematurely and abandoning their teammates, intentional feeders, players who harass other players in the chat, players who douche ping, in other words, using the enemy's missing ping directly on a teammate to insinuate that there is something wrong with that person, programs, presumably to farm influence points. So to recap, here's what I sincerely hope you will do to make your game better. Number 1. Acknowledge that your game is much more crash prone than it should be. Do what it takes to rectify this issue. 2. Take serious steps to reduce the unfairness of your game's matchmaking system, especially in ARAM. This could include either allowing players to choose their champions in ARAM, having both teams comprised of the same champions, or perhaps creating a new game mode where players can choose their champions on the Howling Abyss. 3. Crack down more severely on game dodgers, as the current 15-minute timeout period does not appear to be much of a deterrent. Furthermore, consider changing the way the matchmaking system works so that, when another player dodges a game, the innocent players can choose to either play the champion that was selected for them prior to the dodge, or choose to play the champion that was selected after the dodge. 4. Open up all special game modes so that anyone can play any mode at any time. 5. Provide some way of allowing players to view replays from previous game versions and previous game updates. 6. Crack down more severely on AFKers, intentional feeders, verbally harassing trolls, and accounts which use automated bots to farm IP. The current deterrents do not seem to be sufficient as these problems continue to be rampant throughout the game. In closing, I want to emphasize that my intention here is not to bash your game, but rather to convey just how strongly I would love to continue playing your otherwise very fun game, if it were not for its egregious flaws. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and for understanding my concerns.